Cover 2 podcast live on the air on OC Rock Radio. I'm Nick Nina.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And we got a good podcast. We got a good podcast today, Jared. We got a lot of topics to talk about. And we want to start with the UCLA guys. We talked about this a little bit last week, but we wanted to extend on it a little more because of the developing story that's happened with them. The guys are back, Jared. They're back from China. They're finally back home. They got hounded at LAX. Wow, that was a very enthusiastic cheer you gave.
I know. You'll see why.
So the guys are back. Langelo Ball, Cody Riley, Jalen Hill. They're finally back. The UCLA team actually left them in China. Unlike what I said last week, I thought the coach should stay with them. But so they're back. So I know, Jared, you want to talk about this for sure. So I'll let you give your first thoughts on the UCLA guys coming back.
No, I knew they were going to come back.
Of course.
The fact,
of course.
If anyone thought that they were going to be stuck in jail in China or they are going to be, punished and there and not able to come back, I mean, listen, when the president gets involved,
that's true. That's
and he asked for a favor to have these 3 students brought back home.
He didn't have to do that either. He literally was on there for business, and these kids forced him to ask a question.
True.
To the leader of China.
True.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Listen, I knew all along that they were going to be back. It was, I guess, a little surprising that they did not come back with the team.
Yeah.
The team actually left a few days before, and these kids had to stay, and then they were all flown home. I believe a couple days after the team already went home. So. The big debate right now, I guess, is, have these kids suffered enough? Or should they, still be suspended? Where's that line? And I know there's a lot of people that are on both sides. Nick, where are you at right now?
I'm on the side that something needs to happen to them, because you can't embarrass a team like that. You can't embarrass Pac-12. You can't embarrass the NCAA, and you can't embarrass the United States of America like they did. I mean, this is a national story. Because these guys just thought they could steal some sunglasses. It's just the gall on these kids that they thought they could steal stuff from a Chinese store. I mentioned I hated the fact they did something like that last week. I'm equally as mad this week. It doesn't matter that they came back. But something needs to happen. They need to at least get suspended until Pac-12 play. At least. That's my opinion. I think that needs to be the least punishment they get. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind if they got kicked off the team, all 3 of them. And because I know there was something that happened with the UCLA football team a couple years ago when Jerry Neuheisel was the coach, and 3 players stole a girl's backpack that had a laptop in it, and all 3 of the guys got kicked off the team. So that's a laptop at UCLA. These were sunglasses in China, and they had a chance to go to jail for it. You got to think that if UCLA wants to keep up a good precedent with as far as punishment goes, something's got to happen, and that possibly is these guys getting kicked off the team.
Yeah, I can't argue or disagree with that, because, like I said, these kids are a bunch of knuckleheads. I personally feel that they should be suspended for at least half the year. Now, whether that's
why I say conference play.
The beginning of conference play or league play, whatever you want to call it, I think they need to be sat down for at least half the year. I know there was some talk that they could be only suspended for a couple games, and I'm like, a couple games?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
What the hell is a couple games going to do? That's going to do nothing. If I'm a student or a student athlete and I see that these guys stole something and only got suspended for 3 games, I mean, what kind of precedence is that setting? That's pretty much saying, I can go out and do whatever I want,
exactly.
Get arrested, and hey, I'm only going to miss a couple games and I'll be right back. So, no, I think these kids, they need to be taught a major lesson, which I'm sure they're obviously learning right now, being in the spotlight, the wrong end of the spotlight in a sense. But I would say at least mid-season, put these kids on the bench, potentially the whole year. And some people might say that's a little too much. But then, you know what? Why are they shouldn't be stealing in the first place? These kids know better.
It's
all right.
Stupid.
They're not 5-year-olds at Ralph's stealing a candy bar. Okay. These kids know what they're doing.
Specific with Ralph's.
No, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there because I did that when I was a kid. Don't need to go into that.
Something you want to admit, Jared?
No, not at all. Just
Okay.
just saying.
Okay.
But no, I do think that these kids definitely need to serve some type of long-standing punishment, so they can really sit there and think about it and watch their other teammates play. They should be able to sit there and on the bench and be like, hey, that could be you guys right now. But because you guys decided to screw up, you guys now get to suffer the consequences of not being able to play with your team and play with your brothers. I would probably let them practice still. I wouldn't want them to completely lose focus and get out of shape and not practice on their own. So I would still let them be around the facilities, be around their teammates, so they can have a support system, because I'm not saying that these kids need to go to jail for life or anything, ridiculous like that. So I feel that there needs to be a support system around them to help them. But I also think that they need some type of punishment to where, like I said, that they do understand the magnitude of what they did, because this is now a national story.
Yeah, what's weird about this, and we'll talk about how it affects the team personally, because UCLA is a good team this year. They're in the top 25 rankings. They have a lot of really good recruits, including all three of these players, too. But I want to just jump on the topic of why specifically one kid would do this, and I think you know who I'm talking about. Why LiAngelo Ball would feel the need to steal sunglasses. He's rich. We know this. He has the money for it. He has a Ferrari. He has essentially a brand behind him in the Big Baller brand. So what do you think, Jared, was the reason that he ended up getting involved in this? Why was he one of the guys specifically? I would probably guess he's probably the richest guy on the entire team. I have no idea if he is. I'm just saying because we know that he has a reality show on Facebook. You can see what they do every day. Why do you think he was for some reason involved? Because he seemed like the most tame kid in that family.
Because he was with his friends. And because I'm sure his friends were like,
mom mentality a little bit?
Yeah, mom mentality, a little peer pressure, whatever you want to call it. Hey, let's do this, man. We can totally get away with it. No big deal, you know what I mean? Like I said, we don't know the specifics of why, but
that's true. We don't know.
This is all hypothetical and just talk right now. But it could have been, hey, he wanted to maybe look cool, or he didn't want to let his friends down. They're like, oh, hey, let's go do this. Maybe all three, they were together, they were away from the team, and he didn't want to be alone. So maybe it was one of those things where it's like, all right, I'll just, I'll play along, I'll go along with it. We're not going to get caught. You never think it's going to be you. Exactly. You never think you're going to get caught, right? Until it actually happens. So who knows? That's really the only thing that I can think of as to why he would want to do this, because like you mentioned before, we know that his family has money. The kid drives a Ferrari, he's got the Big Baller brand behind him. It's not like if he he can't go out and buy it himself, or ask his dad, be like, hey dad, I want these, and I'm
Dad,
sure
we need $100.
And I'm sure he would tell his assistant to go buy them for his son, you know what I mean? So money was not the issue. I think it was more of I'm with my friends, my friends are kind of doing it, so I'm just going to go play along with it. But that just does not seem like his mentality, and you're right, he does seem very, very low-key, like Lonzo in a sense. And even kind of all the sons, they seem, well, compared to LeVar, everyone is pretty low-key. But no, it just doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like his character. It just I am interested in to know, for at least from his perspective, LiAngelo's, why he did do this.
Yeah, it should be interesting because they're going to have a press conference at 11 o'clock. It's going to be in the middle of our podcast. So maybe during one of the breaks, we want to check out what they say. We'll extend on this story a little later because obviously if they give us more information, we're talking about this before we really know anything. They're going to be talking in the middle of our podcast doing a press conference at UCLA. So we'll have more information as far as why they did it, what's going to happen to them, and all that stuff. The reason I see, and here's the thing, I think this is the whole culture of the basketball culture right now as far as AAU goes. I think a lot of these kids are treated like celebrities in some ways, even in AAU ball when they're younger, and especially when they're in high school. Guys like Cody Riley, who've been 4-star recruits, and obviously LiAngelo Ball with that family, they're kind of pampered. They're given endorsements in a way. They're on these big teams. They're celebrities already in some points. I mean, Cody Riley was on the best high school team in California, maybe even in the nation last year. You obviously know Marvin Bagley III, the guy from Duke, #1 pick. Him and Marvin Bagley III were unbelievable players at Sierra Canyon High School last year, and so they were almost treated like celebrities. Every single time they played a game, the arena was sold out. You see this with guys like Zion Williamson in South Carolina, the guy that dunks, that has these incredible dunks, the guy that's like 6'10", 300 pounds as a junior in high school. Obviously, LaMelo Ball, any game he's in now is a big deal. They're selling out arenas. They're packing places. They have to stop people from coming in the buildings. So I think maybe that came into play where, yeah, you're right. Maybe they thought, hey, we're never going to get caught. But especially these guys because they've kind of been handed a lot in their life. I don't know about Jalen Hill. I don't know his background. But I assume being a 4-star recruit at UCLA, he probably was kind of treated the same way. I just know LiAngelo and Cody Riley were at big high schools. where they're treated like celebrities and the games are sold out like it's a college basketball game. So
Yeah.
maybe that's a little bit of the mindset too.
It could be, but it's still not an excuse.
Of course not.
I don't
No,
care
not an
if
excuse
you have
at
a
all.
golden spoon fed into your mouth every day. That doesn't give you the right
cool
to
with
go, right? It doesn't give you the right, you can't use it as an excuse for why you want to go steal something, whether you're on U.S. soil or not.
Yeah.
It's not right. It doesn't make sense. Like I said, you're not only representing yourself, you're representing your families, you're representing the school, you're representing the country, and this is not the way that you should do it. So even if they were here, even if they were in L.A. at a liquor store, at a Louis Vuitton store in Beverly Hills or something, right? Still doesn't matter. Like, they should still be punished the same way. It's just the fact that they did it in China. It's just going to get more publicity, and now it's an international story, and now the president has to come in, and it's just like one thing after another, right? So this story went from, 3 UCLA kids stole something in China.
Yeah.
3 freshman athletes, highly recruited athletes, stole something from China. Now they have to miss games. Now the president has to come in. It's just it's all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it just makes for this big, huge story. So obviously they're in the news for the wrong reasons, and I'm sure by now they're very regretful of what they did.
Yeah.
But going back to what we started with, they should still be suspended for a long, long length of time. And I hope they are, because if they're not, if they're only suspended for like a week or a couple games, then that's on
unless
UCLA.
Unless there literally is like barely anything. Like I said, we're gonna, in the middle of our podcast, we'll update you guys because they're gonna say something at 11 o'clock. It's 10:15 right now, live on the podcast. So they're gonna say something in 45 minutes. We don't know 100%, but I agree with you. If there is any evidence that they did this, which I've heard from TMZ, there is. These guys, and I actually think it's probably going to come from the Pac-12 because they're the ones that sent them over to China to get a brand recognition of the Pac-12 and UCLA and college basketball from the West Coast to China, because China has over 100 million fans of the NBA over there. They're almost bigger NBA fans than we are in America. So having college basketball go over there, those guys once again are treated like stars. So I actually feel like it's going to come from the NCAA or the Pac-12 before it even comes from UCLA. I think it's going to come from the top.
I don't care who it comes from. I don't care if it's the coach. I don't care if it's UCLA
LeVar
board.
Ball. LeVar Ball could spend them.
Seriously, I don't care who it is.
Trump could
someone needs to suspend these kids. I could really care less where it comes from.
Yeah, no, it's big. So how do you think this will affect the team now? Because UCLA obviously ranked number 23. It's just three players that were all 3 to 4 star recruits. Obviously not, they're not like Marvin Bagley III, like we mentioned. They're not top players, but they are big roles. Especially Cody Riley. I know he was partially in the starting lineup that first game against Georgia Tech, or he would have been. He was in their preseason game. So how do you think this will affect the team necessarily? How do you think this will affect the UCLA Bruins?
I think this is going to affect the team more off the court than it does on the court, and I think because, like you mentioned, these athletes were mainly 4-star recruits, right? So they're very, very good players, but they are not Marvin Bagleys, okay? They are not these...
and UCLA has guys like Chris Wilkes on their team that are legit.
Exactly. They're not these just LeBron James freaks coming out of high school who, not to say that these kids can't change the game for their team, but it's not like a one-man show out there. So I think on the court, I think the guys who are playing will be able to hold the fort down in a sense. But I think it's going to be more of a mental thing. Whenever UCLA travels and goes on the road, I can guarantee you
the opposing crowds
are going to kill these kids, all of them, and it's going to be undeserving for all the kids who had nothing to do with this.
I know, exactly.
But it's the fact that they're associated with UCLA, and especially if all 3 of these kids, Ball, Riley, and Hill, travel with the teams on the road, and even if they don't play,
don't put them on the bench.
I think it's going to be somewhat of a mental hurdle to get over and have to block out the noise. I think that's going to be the biggest factor. When they're on the court and they're actually playing, I think they'll be fine for the most part. The mental thing for me is what I'll be looking for.
I've been hearing that USC students are preparing to do stuff for the UCLA.
I
USC
would not
game
be
this
surprised. Why wouldn't they?
There's going to be a lot of Louis Vuitton sunglasses in that USC student section this weekend.
Oh yeah,
you know it.
Yep.
So real quick, let's stay on the college basketball thing. We have a little bit more time in the segment left. Let's talk about the huge basketball games last night. Duke and Michigan State. Yeah, and Kansas and Kentucky. I missed most of the Kansas Kentucky game. I was at dinner. I did watch the entire Duke Michigan State game.
How dare you, Nick? You were at dinner?
I was. Wow. Yeah, sorry, man. I had to eat.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, man. And Duke actually lost Marvin Bagley III halfway through this game to an eye injury. Got poked in the eye. Duke looks really good, and so does Michigan State. These two teams, although Duke ended up winning by 7, I think these two teams really prove that they should be ranked 1 and 2.
Oh no,
they're really good teams.
No doubt, this was a battle all the way. The end of the half, Duke only went up because of Grayson Allen's pretty much half-court three-point shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Michigan State looked really, really good in the first half, and then Duke made some good adjustments in the second half. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, they were without their star player, Bagley. But like I said, he has an eye injury, and they're not sure. I think it was more of a precautionary thing of why they held him out.
Why bring
it's
him
the
out?
Second game of the season. You're not trying to get him hurt. Third game of the season, I'm sorry. You're not trying to, risk him right now. Conference play is still down the road.
Yeah.
But Duke looks really, really good. They seem like they have some good depth. Obviously, they have one of the best recruiting classes going into this year, and they right now deservingly should be ranked number 1. Michigan State, even though they did lose, I'm not putting them that far down. You want to put them down to 3 or 4, sure, but I am not moving them far at all. And then as far as Kansas goes, I really do like Kansas. Kentucky, to me, is somewhat of an interesting team because, like, when you think of college basketball, you really always think of Kentucky. They're one of always the top teams. They always have a good recruiting class. I'm not so sure about Kentucky this year. I feel like the last year, Calipari, he hasn't been able to get his team to kind of really gel, at least in my opinion, especially going into the tournament last year. I don't think they really played that well. So for me right now, this is Duke's kind of championship to lose. And this is very, very early in the season, so I don't want to put a whole lot of stock into that because obviously things are going to change. More than likely these teams are going to lose a couple games during the season. But right now, I would say Duke is still at the very top. I put Kansas number 2 and then Michigan State right there at number 3. What do you think?
Yeah, no, you bring up good points about Kentucky. And the weird thing, me and my brother watching the game, we did watch like the first 10 minutes of the game. Dude, Kentucky has like all new players. I don't think they have any guys coming back. Eventually, that system's not going to work. Like, you're always mixing, especially early in the season, too. You're mixing these brand new guys who were all at different high schools last year, some of them from different countries as well, coming to play basketball at Kentucky, and they just don't know how to gel. You saw it, they only scored 28 points in the second half of that game yesterday against Kansas. That can't happen, okay? Duke scored 50, and Michigan State scored 47 in the second half. So it's something to do. I just think this Calipari system, it's not going to work every single year when your entire roster is new. As far as the starting, I should preface, the starting lineup is brand new almost every single year. I mean, it's hard to look at them and say, oh, well, I remember that guy from last year. No, because nobody stays at Kentucky. It's almost it's Calipari way, and I think it affects them.
8 of the 14 athletes on this roster are freshmen.
Yeah, there you go, exactly.
And that, like I said, that's not always a bad thing because listen, you bring in 5-star recruits, and listen, they're 5-star recruits for a reason. They can come on the court and win you games, but the camaraderie, the kind of the way teams gel together, that takes time. And so right now, when you've got 8 freshmen on a team and a good majority of them are going to be playing, it's going to take a little bit for this team to come together. So right now, the fact that they did lose to Kansas, I don't think it's a huge deal, like I said, but I think it's something to where Calipari, like you said, eventually, when you have such high turnover every single year, it's tough to get players to buy in when they know, hey, I'm only going to be here for 1 year.
No, exactly.
And then I'm going to the end. I know I'm NBA ready. I have to come to college for a year, right?
No, totally.
I think one of the best coaches at keeping his players is Roy Williams, head coach in North Carolina. I don't believe he has had a one-and-done player in his career, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty...
He has a lot of seniors, more seniors
than anyone. And as far as I know, I'll have to double-check my stats and come back to it if I'm wrong, but I don't believe he has ever had a one-and-done player. He finds a way to keep his players for at least their sophomore, more than likely their junior years, develop them a little more, make sure that they're fully prepared for the NBA if they're even NBA ready.
No, totally. So we'll see if it affects Kentucky for the rest of the season. That's it for the college basketball segment. A lot of UCLA news. Like we said, we'll update you later on the UCLA press conference, because obviously that's the biggest story in sports today, at least I can think of. So we'll update you on that. And coming up next, we're going to talk about the NFL. A lot of good storylines and a lot of teams that are still surprising us, and I wonder why they're still surprising us. So we'll talk about those teams and other stuff on the other side of this break. NFL talk on the other side of this quick break.
Alonso fails to fall back, and Carolina, with a simple zone read, is pounding the Dolphins. Cam Newton, I know he had a 72-yard run earlier in his career, but he almost had 72 there.
Play action from Goff. Goff, deep ball. Robert Woods, he's got it! Robert Woods, he is gone! Touchdown Rams, 94 yards.
Zimmer is allegedly toying with the idea of benching Case Keenum to bring back Teddy Bridgewater, who last played 22 months ago. Zimmer says he's undecided about his trigger man going into Sunday's unexpectedly hot matchup with the Rams and Jared Goff.
Tyrod's our starter.
All right, so despite that, Tyrod Taylor will be benched for this upcoming game against the Chargers in favor of Nathan Peterman, a rookie fifth-round pick. He replaced Taylor with about 5 minutes to go in that loss to the Saints on Sunday. The Bills ranked 28th in yards per game, 19th in points per game. So clearly something had to be done.
Cover 2 podcast back on OC Rock Radio. Nick, it's time for a little NFL talk.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. We've got a lot going on, a lot of couple quarterback changes potentially going on with some teams.
Yeah.
A couple big time, maybe not upsets, but teams that we didn't necessarily think were going to be as good as they are in the positions they are right now. New Orleans, just off the top of my head, really, really surprising team. The Bills, they're just going in the opposite direction. I actually want to get started with the Bills, if you don't mind.
Talk about the Bills-Saints game.
Because, it was a very something very relevant that just happened this morning, actually, before we started the podcast. The Bills are benching Tyrod Taylor. I understand that the Bills got whooped by the Saints this past Sunday.
When we mean whooped, we mean whooped.
Whooped. The score of that game
47-10 was the score, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't even need to look it up.
Not that I'm a Bills or Saints fan, but I just remember that score for some reason.
47-10. That's not really good.
47-3 for most of the game.
But, so I understand the Bills' offense did not put up a lot of points, but it's not Tyrod Taylor's fault that their defense gave up 47. Very, very interesting. Nick, what are your initial thoughts on them benching Tyrod Taylor?
I think it's a little premature, but I think I understand it. I don't like it. I understand why you do it because you got killed, and the team's kind of been on the downswing the last 2 games. They believe losses to the Jets and now the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. And so they're just trying something new. They're going to see if Nathan Peterman's the guy. I actually like Tyrod Taylor. I like him better than a lot of the other running quarterbacks in the league. So I don't know why there's, such a instant thing to just take him out of there because you paid him a lot of money too. And Nathan Peterman has not really shown even in the preseason that he's been that good of a quarterback. So this is kind of, I just think it's overreaction to the one loss. Like you said, I think it's overreaction to the fact that they got killed the other night. And the fact that they lost to the Jets, a division opponent. But I understand why they do it. I don't like it, though, because I don't really think Nathan Peterman's that good of a quarterback.
No, I don't either. And listen, this Bills team is still 5-4. So obviously the Patriots are the Patriots are starting to do their thing and pull away a little bit at 7-2, but it's not like the Bills are done with the playoffs. It almost seems like when you're benching your starting quarterback, it almost seems like you're giving up in a sense. And it like I said, there's not too many good to great backup quarterbacks in the league, So when you make a move like this, it's kind of like, what are you telling your team? Are you saying, all right, we're going in a different direction because we're not good enough? Like we're going to be better with the backup? I don't know. I mean, I think this is somewhat of an internal thing that's going on with Tyrod Taylor and either the coaching staff or what you have not, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. This team is still in the wild card hunt. They have a good chance to at least have a shot to make the playoffs and get into that wild card spot. So, very interesting. And like I said, I agree with you. I don't agree with this decision. I think they should have stuck with Tyrod Taylor. And I can see him getting back into the starting lineup within a game or two if their backup does not do well, which I do not think he's going to do well. So Tyrod Taylor, just hold on for this week because I'm pretty sure he's going to be back in the starting lineup.
Do they play the Chargers this week? Is that who they play?
Yes, yes they do.
So that's always going to be, you're going to have a chance to win with the Chargers because there's always either you're going to be going down the field trying to score a touchdown to win the game or the Chargers are. Because that's the way the games go. You saw it again with Jaguars and San Diego again went to overtime. San Diego only lost by 3. But, no, so It's a game against an opponent that has a solid defense. I actually think San Diego's defense is good besides, especially Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. So that should be interesting to do. But what happens to Tyrod Taylor if Nathan Peterman is the guy? What if he
Tyrod's
Dax him like Dak did to Romo last year?
Tyrod is gone.
Where does he go? Where do you think he lands, though? That's what I'm saying. Like, where does what happens to him?
I could see a couple things happening, depending on how much San Francisco really likes Jimmy Garoppolo.
Wow, that's interesting.
I could potentially just having a look-see. You never know. If the Redskins get rid of Kirk Cousins, I could see the Redskins looking at Tyrod Taylor. I think Tyrod Taylor is a really good quarterback. Obviously, I think he's better at using his legs and running and scrambling and throwing on the run as opposed to being a pure
very
pocket passer.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a strength, is dropping back 50 times a game and chucking it. I think using his legs kind of opens up and spreads out the defense a little more. So that's just his style of game, And a lot of times if you're an NFL team, a coach, and an owner, it's tough to have a huge investment in a player like that because when he, wants to run, it's just more risk for injury. So I kind of understand where the Bills are coming from in a sense that they don't want to give him this huge, 5-6 year, $100 million contract because unlike some other pocket passers, he has a little bit more risk of injury. Saying that, like I said, I still think he deserves to be a starting quarterback in this league, better than probably 5 or 10 quarterbacks in this league right now, easily. If Peterman does end up taking over, then I think Tyrod Taylor and the Bills will come to some type of buyout agreement, and I think he's going to have to get a fresh start somewhere else. Those are just the first two teams that come off my head.
Yeah, you don't see this a lot with a team that's in a playoff spot or has a chance to be in a playoff spot that changes their quarterback. Especially since before that they were 5-2. Before these two losses, obviously they were 5-2. So what happened is 2 weeks really that big of a difference to where you have to pull the quarterback? I don't think so. I don't think you do either.
No.
So it should be interesting watching Nathan Peterson. We'll probably be able to see that game because it's in the LA market. So that should be interesting to watch. Let's move on to another quarterback controversy in the great state of Minnesota. Now this one is another one that baffles me. Case Keenum versus Teddy Bridgewater. We all didn't really expect Teddy Bridgewater to come back as soon as he did. We talked about it on the podcast last week. I'm very happy for him. Devastating injury he had 2 years ago, and now he's finally back. But what is the rush to get him back in? Because Coach Mike Zimmer will not. He just finally named Case Keenum the starter for this game coming up. Jared, why did it take so long for them to pick Keenum? Because Keenum's been a really, really good quarterback.
Yeah, he has. He threw for over 300 yards last week, 4 touchdowns, did have 2 interceptions, but led Minnesota to a big win over Washington on the road. So I think Case Keenum has kind of earned the right to start at least this week. I don't want to say it's a week-to-week basis, but I think right now he's earned that. And I think, the Vikings are just being very, very cautious with Bridgewater. He's been cleared by the doctors to come back. They activated him off the PUP list last week, so he was able to suit up and be on the bench. And I just don't think they want to rush him. I think they want to get him, acclimated to the game again. And listen, if Keenum, the thing that sucks, and the NFL stands for not for long. So if Keenum goes out this week against the Rams and throws 3 picks and they lose, I could see Bridgewater starting next week. Yeah. If Keenum comes out and plays well and leads the Vikings to another win, I can see him holding that spot and then keeping Bridgewater on the bench. I think it all really depends. It's on Keenum's shoulders. And whether you want to say that's fair or not, that's for everyone else to judge. Yeah. But I think that's just how it's going to go. They don't want to necessarily throw Bridgewater in right now, but if they lose 1 or 2 games in a row and things aren't starting to look good, then I can see them potentially bringing Bridgewater in. Another point to this, though, if it gets to where the Vikings, maybe are out of playoff contention or they lose a couple games in a row.
It's probably not going to happen, though. They're 7-2.
True. That's right. I'm just saying hypothetically, if for some reason they just completely fall off the wagon and lose 5-6 games in a row.
Which they've done in the past.
Well, yeah, they have that, which is why I'm saying it's not completely out of the realm. If that does happen, then I think that's also an interesting story because do you bring Teddy Bridgewater in if the games don't mean anything? Would you risk him getting injured, or would you want to give him a full another offseason where he can, get in a little bit better shape and potentially be your starting quarterback for next year? So I think there's still a lot in the air with his situation. But for right now, like I said, Case Keenum is in control, and it's his job to lose.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I think you're a little higher on Bridgewater than I am. I don't know what Bridgewater has to show, and I really didn't think he was like that good of a quarterback. Even when he got hurt, I thought there was still there was a reason Sam Bradford came in last year when Bridgewater wasn't ready. Because and that's why everyone was saying, well, Bradford's going to be the guy in the future. So why isn't Case Keenum the guy? Why all of a sudden, when Case Keenum's a good quarterback, is because Bridgewater came back? Why all of a sudden is now, oh, screw Case Keenum, let's bring Brad? No, I don't think Bridgewater's that good of a quarterback, to be honest. He hasn't showed that he can win big games. He lost the big game to Seattle 2 years ago in the playoffs. So I don't really see what all the hype is with him. And I think Case Keenum was actually a good quarterback for the Rams last year. He won 3 games didn't he win 3 games for him last year?
So
I think it was
3 games is considered a good quarterback?
Well, no, but then they pulled him, so he couldn't do anything about it. Because Goff didn't win a game last year. So, no, I think my point more on this is that I think we really shows, talking about the Rams a little bit, is the fact that Jay Fisher was such a bad coach that now
True.
he gets a good coach and gets a good system, and he's he's back to what he was when he was in college.
True.
He's a great quarterback. He broke records. So I think Case Keenum's a solid quarterback, and I think why kill something that's going good? Why ruin something that is clearly working? 7-2. You don't have to worry about the Packers and Aaron Rodgers this year. The Bears aren't a factor, and the Detroit Lions struggled a little bit against the Cleveland Browns last weekend. So I don't think they had to worry about much. I just stick with the quarterback unless he gets hurt, or like you said, unless he has a couple bad games. I don't think you do. This is different from the Tyrod situation because Tyrod really hadn't done a lot wrong before that, and Nathan Peterman's not a guy that started before like Bridgewater, So I think it's going to take more games for Keenum to get pulled than just one. I think that's a little too gun-shy, and it reminds me a little bit of if they end up doing that and they end up making the playoffs, of when the 49ers started Kaepernick over Alex Smith. They decided to go over because Kaepernick, although he had a great year or two with the 49ers, he ended up not being good in the end. And he ended up, they were 7-9 team, and then last year they won 2 games. So I think you don't want to be too gun-shy with these guys because I think the better quarterback right now is Case Keenum, and then next year maybe Teddy Bridgewater, when he's fully healthy, is back to normal, and that's when you go with him.
Okay. Yeah, no, like I said, it's an interesting. I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's just like I said, I think this is going to be more of a week-to-week situation. And like I said, this is Keenum's job to lose right now. If he has a bad game or two, then I think they're going to look at Bridgewater. If he continues to play well and throw touchdowns and not throw as many interceptions, then he deserves to stay in the game.
Yeah. It should be interesting to watch, just like the Bills. Who do they play this week, by the way? The Vikings.
The Vikings,
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Let's see who they play this week.
I'm not so sure who they play.
We're
for a minute,
checking,
I didn't even realize that they were 7-2. It's kind of been like a quiet 7-2.
That's why I didn't realize that till last week.
And it's because the Packers are pretty much out of contention now without Aaron Rodgers. So this is really between the Vikings and the Lions. But
which you wouldn't expect it.
No, not at all. I just when you said 7-2, I'm like, wait, what? Really? So this week, I'm looking at last week. Get it together, man. Get it together. The Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, the Rams. Wow, we got a big game coming up then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's both games we'll be able to see. This is the one time where we actually don't mind the blackout. I know, well, maybe you want to watch the Cowboys.
They play Sunday night,
Cowboys,
so that's fine.
I don't know about the Cowboys right now, bro. And we'll talk about this later in the segment. We'll talk about it at the end. Not going to get you mad, so we can talk about good stuff before, and then I'll get you mad at the end of the segment.
Good,
talk about the Cowboys.
then the ugly.
So let's move on. Well, let's talk about the Rams. Because they play the Rams this weekend. We want to talk about the Rams anyways. The Rams are freaking good. Okay? You were at the game last Sunday.
I was.
They played the Texans.
50-yard line, 4 rows back. I can pretty much touch the players. Yes.
And you didn't have to sneak up like I had to last year.
No, not at all. I was ready to suit up. I was so
kicked out of the
close.
Coliseum last year for moving up seats.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
No. Great game.
No, great game, obviously, to watch because the Rams are fun to watch this year. Complete opposite of last year. Jared, since you were at the game, I'll let you get your first take. Man, the Rams seem to they just blow everybody out every week. It's like a college football team.
They did, and you know what? The first quarter, it was not really.
It was very close. You're right.
Yeah, it wasn't a blowout at all. Actually, Houston was able to move the ball.
At halftime, I think it was only like 9-7, right?
Yeah, it was very close. Houston in the first half was able to move the ball fairly well against the Rams defense, and the Rams offense didn't really have much going on. And then the third quarter, I forget the exact numbers, but the Rams in the third quarter I believe they have the best offense. They've scored the most points than any other team in the third quarter.
Right,
and they continued that streak this past Sunday when they came out and scored 21 in the third. They had a big interception against Savage, and I was sitting with a lot of other. No, I was sitting with a lot of other Houston Texans fans, and they were chanting for TJ Yates to come into the game.
I love that personal story too. Because you're not going to hear that other places too.
Never ever a good sign when you are chanting for TJ Yates to come into the game. No disrespect to you, TJ Yates, but that's just not good for the Texans as a whole. Obviously, they are down to Deshaun Watson, so they are now down to their second and third string quarterbacks. A little bit tougher for them to move the ball. In the second half, I think that Wade Phillips and this Rams defense made some really, really good adjustments. And really the Texans, it was like 3 and out. They weren't able to do anything really in the second half. So, no, the Rams, they put it on them. They had a couple big, long plays. Robert Woods had a huge, 60, 70-yard long touchdown pass.
I think it was longer than that. I think it was like 90-something.
It could have been. It was pretty much a beat down in the second half. But no, the Rams, it was the same thing last year. They started out 3-1, and then they took a big tumble. So this year, I was kind of pumping the brakes on them for a little while. I didn't want to completely, I wanted to see what they were going to do, see if they could extend that streak. And so far, almost into the third quarter of the season, they have. So right now, I've got to put them as a contender, and at least in the NFC, I think they've got to be the next best team, only behind the Eagles.
No, so it's interesting you say that, because I was gonna ask you how good you thought the Rams were. I'm not ready to crown them like Super Bowl champs or anything like that.
No, not yet.
Yeah. Because you still do have a very inexperienced quarterback. That's the same with Wentz too. I'm not ready to crown the Eagles the champions either. But it's interesting to see, and it's good for the league that these young quarterbacks have the two best teams in the league. I think it's hard to argue against the Rams and Eagles being the best team. There are still very good teams that could beat them in the playoffs. But, man, right now it just does look like the Rams are legit this year. They're going to end up with probably no less than 4 losses. They're going to be a top seed or one of the top 3 seeds. I don't know if they'll get a bye or not, but they're good this season. And the Seahawks are right behind them, and they haven't beat the Seahawks yet. And I still think that's the one thing that they need to do this season to really prove that they're good. Because if they can't beat the Seahawks might win the division, and then you're playing a wild card playoff game. So you still have to take care of that. That's the one thing I think they can do this season. And then I'll say, hey, let's see how the ride goes. But wow, interesting enough though, right? They were so bad last year. It's just interesting to see how well they're doing this year. Now, real quick. How was the crowd at the Rams game? What was it like as far as the attendance goes?
It was a typical LA crowd. The first quarter was kind of like, oh boy. It was kind of, halfway, 3/4 filled. And then by the second half, everyone kind of shows up fashionably late. And by the third quarter, it was a packed house, and it was pretty loud in there. So really, really cool game to go to. It was my first Rams game since they've been back in LA.
I thought you'd been doing that.
I had not. I had been obviously to a couple SC games before in the Coliseum, but my first Rams game in LA. So really, really cool. The fans, I mean, you go to the bathroom, you go to the concession stands, they're all chanting, whose house, Rams house.
That's cool.
They're all into it. So it was really, really fun to be
I could not tell you how different that is from when I went as a Cardinals fan last year. We beat them like 50 to something. It is like everybody was like, oh, I hate this team. I hate Goff. And it's just so dude, if they would have done this in their first year in LA, that place would be sold out.
Oh, nuts.
They had such a bad year last year that it's disappointing. But I think fans are starting to get it. Did the crowd get better? The crowd did get better later, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
The problem with it is you can't look on TV because they only sell like 70,000 seats, and it's a 93-seat stadium. So there's going to be empty seats every week. Maybe they should start tarping off or something like that. But so even though it might look like it's not a full crowd, it's still a very good crowd, and the crowd will be loud.
It was a great crowd. And I mean, to get into the stadium, the parking and that type of thing takes a while, so it's kind of understandable as to why it was a later crowd showing up. But no, once it got packed, it was loud, it was noisy, great atmosphere. So no, I love sporting events in general, but that was a great game to go to.
Yeah, good for the Rams, good for the fans too. So one more game we want to talk about. We'll talk about we'll talk about two real quick. The Panthers. Jared, what's your opinion about the Panthers after this Monday Night Football beat down the Dolphins?
Cam got me that fantasy win, my man. We're not talking about fantasy right now. We're talking about the game.
We're talking about
okay.
real life, Jared, right now, yeah.
Cam actually looked like the MVP of a couple years ago.
2015.
He did. No interceptions, which is big for Cam because his accuracy is sometimes off. But he came out and did his thing. Only threw for 250 yards, which is respectable, but not like 350, 400 or something like that. He did rushed for 95, but he threw 4 touchdowns, which is I think a big key here. It was kind of spread out, 2 to Funchess, 1 to Ed Dixon, and then 1 to Christian McCaffrey. Bad news for the Panthers is that they lose Curtis Samuel, their rookie kind of hybrid running back / wide receiver, to an ankle injury. He'll be out for the rest of the year, so they'll have to replace him. It looks like Russell Shepard, another small kind of change of pace.
Who was already trying to replace Kelvin Benjamin. So.
Yes. So, with the loss of Kelvin Benjamin, wasn't necessarily sure how this team was going to react. That was a big piece for Cam Newton. Kelvin Benjamin was another big body guy. So for Cam, like I mentioned, because he doesn't have the greatest accuracy, he could really just throw the ball up, and Benjamin was one of those guys that could just go catch it. So I was very interested to see how this team was going to react without one of his star receivers. And they came out and they pretty much fired on all cylinders like they weren't missing a beat. So very good for this team. The Dolphins, they look like the Dolphins pretty much. No, not good at all. So I wasn't expecting that much of a beatdown. But no, good to see the Panthers and Cam Newton come out and do their thing.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. Man, when Cam's happy, it's a whole different story.
No, it is. I mean, this team is dangerous when they are clicking on all cylinders. Yeah. It's just they're so inconsistent.
Yeah.
But when they get it going on offense, their defense is very, very underrated in my opinion. A couple years ago, they had after they lost Josh Norman, they were pretty much starting a whole rookie secondary, at least their corners. Now those guys have a couple years under their belt. So, when this team is clicking, I think they can really play with almost anyone.
So can I? Would you put them third best team in the NFC?
I'm going to put them top 5.
Okay. That's fair. So you say it's a playoff team?
Yes. I think right now the Saints, do they have a better record? I think by they might, one game. Or is it tied?
It might. Yeah, I think it might be like one game.
Yeah.
I know they beat the Panthers too, so no matter what, they're going to be ahead of them.
True. So. Yeah. So, but no, I think the Panthers right now are. I would put them at number 4 in the NFC. But no, they're definitely there.
Yeah.
They have a really, really solid chance to make the playoffs. And if I had to play them in the playoffs, I'd be scared.
Yeah. So, end the segment. Jared, what the hell happened to the Cowboys this week?
Oh, my. You know what? Luckily, because I was at the Rams game, I did not get an opportunity to see the Cowboys game because it was also on at 1 o'clock. 2 things, really. The Cowboys were down their star players, and that whole next man up mentality did not work. The Cowboys lost Sean Lee, I believe, in the second quarter to a hamstring injury, which is more than likely going to keep him out for a couple weeks. It seems like that's a significant injury. He's been dealing with hamstrings injuries pretty much his whole NFL career. Yeah. He had one earlier in the season. I believe he missed 1 game, was able to come back. This one seems like it's a little more severe, and he's probably going to miss a couple weeks. So that's a big blow for that defense. He's the leader of that team, gets everyone lined up, and is easily the leading tackler so far in the season. They're still missing Dan Bailey, who's also out with a leg injury. He could be back in the next week or 2, but that's still, Dan Bailey, one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history. So that's a big blow when you lose him. And I think the biggest blow to this team was losing Tyron Smith, their all-pro left tackle. Chaz Green is the backup left tackle. He should be fired. He gave up 6 sacks to Adrian Claiborne. Adrian Claiborne is a really good defensive end.
He had 6 sacks?
Yes, Chaz Green.
I didn't watch the game.
Chaz Green was responsible for giving up 6 sacks to Adrian Claiborne. Made Claiborne look like an all-pro, just stud defensive end, which he's a really, really good player.
But he ain't 6
that
sacks.
good. No, the Cowboys were sacked 8 times total. Say Dak Prescott was sacked 8 times total. So I think it was a combination of not having Tyron Smith in the lineup as their left tackle, and also I think the play calling. I went back and watched a little bit of the game, the highlights, the recap. And I think it was the play calling. I don't think the offensive coordinator, Scott Linehan, did enough to help this team, knowing that they were down some key players. Instead of, throwing quick screens, trying to run the ball and establish some clock a little bit. Yeah. I think they were still running a lot of, deep developing routes. And when you do that, you need an offensive line that can protect your quarterback. And the Cowboys clearly from the start of the game did not have that. So I do want to put some of the blame on this coaching staff, not just all on the players. But at the end of the day, you come out last week and you beat Kansas City. And everyone's like, oh, okay, this Cowboys team might be for real. Yeah. And then this week you come out and you throw up pretty much a goose egg. They did score 7.
Are they 5-5 right now?
5-4.
Oh, 5-4. Okay.
5-4. So it's kind of like a week-to-week thing. One week this team looks really good and they beat Kansas City, one of the best teams in the league. And the next week they lose to Atlanta, who's a good team.
But the difference is they don't have Zeke.
No, and they didn't have Zeke. But you know what? Listen, I'm not going to put that on not having Zeke. That was the left tackle and that was the defense. Okay, Zeke is a freakish athlete, a great player, a game changer. I get that. I understand that. This team has good running back depth. Yeah. Darren McFadden and Alfred Morris can run the ball for this team.
You're right. This is two good backup running backs. For sure.
When this offensive, Darren McFadden, before the Cowboys drafted Zeke Elliott, the year before that, Darren McFadden rushed for over 1,000 yards behind the same offensive line. Yeah. So I don't want to sit here and say that, oh, it's all Zeke and blah, blah, blah. No. When this offensive line is going, they should run the ball and they can continue to rack up over 100 yards a game and control the clock. So they don't want to do that. They want to continue to pass and get Dak Prescott sacked. That's on them.
Yeah, no, I think it was a combination of a lot of stuff that happened. We'll see this week.
Sunday night against the Eagles.
Ooh, that is tough.
A little tough. And the Eagles are coming off a bye.
Yeah, so that should be interesting to watch. This should be a good game. So it's done with the NFL segment. You got to hear Jared vent about the Cowboys right there.
Sorry, I just I had to, man.
No, it's fine.
I didn't want to in the beginning, and you forced it on me.
Yeah,
so.
I did force it.
It's your fault, Nick.
That's going to be a good game, though. Eagles and Cowboys for sure. All right, we'll be right back with a game we like to play, Jared.
Do you care?
Do you care?
Let's do it. Why not?
Absolutely. On the other side of this quick break, Come To Podcast.
I think Jerry Jones is being a bit vindictive. He's upset at the commissioner for suspending his guy, his running back, trying to hold him out for 6 games and have this protracted battle going on. And he's exacting retribution towards Roger Goodell. He's using this contract extension for Roger Goodell, holding it over his head and conducting himself like a belligerent owner who's very, very disgusted with what he perceives as a subordinate trying to usurp his authority as a premier owner in the National Football League. I think that's what this comes down to.
But I'll tell you one thing, this team is really special. And you ain't coming to my house playing that water bottle flip game again. You know what I mean? I don't care who you are, king, what do you call yourself, king, queen, princess, whatever you are. You know what, we're going to fight. And nobody out there going to punk us. So we're just going out there, play our game, and I think we're just going to get better every day.
You can call yourself king, queen, princess, you're not going to punk us.
Well, I'm the king, my wife is the queen, and my daughter is the princess, so we got all 3 covered.
What happened with you and Ennis and Frank on that play there?
Nothing.
Make a dinner reservation?
Back on the Cover 2 podcast. Once again, I'm Jared Smith.
I'm Nick Nina.
And Nick, guess what it's time for?
It's time for...
Drum roll, please.
Do you care?
Favorite
game
segment
here on the podcast.
Of the
Always.
show.
Best segment of the podcast.
That's
for
right.
sure.
That's right. We're gonna get started. Nick,
barring any time we can crap on LeVar Ball too. That's usually a pretty good segment,
unfortunately, we won't have any LeVar Ball talk today.
We talked enough about the balls in the first segment.
A little bit. Yeah, we'll let him off the hook the rest of the show.
Well, the press conference is going on right now.
Potentially
so
off the hook.
We will have news probably in the next segment about that stuff. Hopefully LeVar says something stupid.
I hope so.
And we can have something to talk about next segment. But for right now, it's Do You Care?
Yeah.
And that's all that matters right now, Jared.
Nick, you get the first question. Do you care? LeBron James said he is the king of New York.
I do care because I thought it was great that he could care less what the Knicks players think of him. If you didn't see what happened in New York the other night, LeBron kind of went on a roll of trash talking the Knicks and it ended up beating them single-handedly later in the game, too, along with help from Kyle Korver, of course. But he started the day by taking the subway and pissing off a couple fans on the subway by videotaping him. It's a hilarious video. Go watch it. But LeBron, they tend to take the subway to Madison Square Garden every single time they're in New York, just as a kind of gimmick thing they do. But he pissed off a couple fans when he was on the subway. Then he gets to the game and he said stuff about Phil Jackson and said stuff about Frank Nikitalini and said stuff about other Knicks players. And they all came to a head during the game when the rookie, Frank Nikitalini, I think, am I saying his name right? Nikitalini.
Better than I would ever say it, so we're going to go with that.
It's very hard to say, especially since I'm a little under the weather today. It's not easy to say, but he pushed LeBron a couple times, then Enes Kanter came up and did some weird, like, I'm not going to look at you, but I'm going to yell at you kind of thing to him, and then they got in a little shoving match, and it was just typical NBA fight where nothing happened, but they acted like they got into a fist fight. And then after the game, Enes Kanter and LeBron James traded barbs. You heard that in the sound bites if you're listening to the YouTube version. And it was great. It was great because LeBron ended up saying, or Kanter called him a princess or something like that, and LeBron ended up saying on Twitter that he's the king of New York. So good for LeBron. He won every fight that he was in that night. He won every battle on the mic. He won every battle on the subway. So good for LeBron. And Enes Kanter needs to calm down with the trash talk because it's not working out, big man.
Oh, boy.
Jared, do you care that Jimmy G is probably going to start next week?
I do care, and for only one reason. Why would you start him when you traded...
They won a game against the Giants.
You traded a second-round pick for him. They have one of the worst records in the NFL right now. They're fighting for the number one overall draft pick, more than likely going to get a top 3 draft pick. So why would you put Jimmy G in when he's the best quarterback that you have on the roster? But also, why would you want the potential chance of him getting injured and then potentially losing him all next year, right? Listen, like, I get it. You want to win. This league is about winning. That's it. There's not a whole lot of tanking that goes on. It isn't like the NBA or anything like that. But at the same time, I think you also have to be smart about it. And at the end of the day, right now, is it Beathard? Who's there? No,
CJ Beathard.
CJ Beathard, yeah.
Iowa quarterback.
He hasn't played horrible, right? So I would actually let him continue to play. It's not like the team's going anywhere. They're not going to make the playoffs. So whether they get a couple more wins under their belt or whether they lose the rest of their games, I would rather do that with Beathard than bring in Jimmy G and let people see what he can do. Give him a full offseason with Kyle Shanahan in that offense. Let him get familiar with it, get familiar with the receivers and all that stuff, and start him next year if you can't, if you don't draft one of the top quarterbacks or if you don't trade for Kirk Cousins or something like that. But to put him out there right now, and who knows, there's not even a guarantee that they're going to sign Jimmy G to a long-term extension and keep him. Maybe they brought him in, want to use him for trade bait during the draft, or you know what I mean? There's so many different scenarios that go on. So risking him right now with potential injury when your team has zero chance of making the playoffs doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because I think there's a lot of other options that you can use him for down the road. And if he does get injured right now, a lot of those options go out the window. So keep him healthy, keep him on the bench, let him learn the offense, let the rookie go in there and play, and then have Jimmy G healthy and ready for next year. Nick, do you care that the LA Clippers, the horrible LA Clippers, I might add, have lost 6 in a row?
Wow, why'd you have to add that? That wasn't even part of the question.
I'm a Laker fan. I'm sorry.
True. I know, but when we do this, we write down the questions, and that was not, when he added the horrible LA Clippers, that was not part of the question.
Hey, deal with it, okay?
Yes, I do care, because the Clippers are one of my favorite teams in the NBA, along with the Lakers. I don't hate the Lakers. I like both teams, okay?
Okay.
But the problem with the Clippers right now is they started 4-0, and I thought they were going to be really good. We even had a question on Do You Care about the Clippers. And then all of a sudden, now the Clippers just decide to suck, and now they're the worst team in the league. I don't know what to think. The NBA is pissing me off this season because neither of the teams in LA really have a chance at the title. Laker fans, I'm sorry. They're not going to win the title, okay? If you think that's going to happen, you're as delusional as LeVar Ball thinking that LeAngelo Ball didn't do something in China this week.
I think it could happen.
You think it could
win the title? Kidding. I'm just
Yeah, come on,
kidding.
Jared. I was just going to say.
Just kidding.
Golden State Warriors too good. They won't win championship anyways. But, the Clippers, they're super disappointed. I don't know what to think about the Clippers. It's a team that I like to follow, and that's why I'm watching the Kings a lot more this season. I'm talking about the LA Kings, the hockey team, because the NBA teams are disappointing me this season. So, come on, Clippers, let's step it up. Jared, do you care that Giancarlo Stanton will probably actually get traded this offseason?
I do care, because if I'm the Marlins, why? Yeah, they say right now their new CEO Derek Jeter is saying a lot about how they have a lot of money
it's
issues.
A weird thing. New
the team,
CEO,
yeah, no, new
Derek
CEO.
Jeter.
It still sounds weird. But the team has been losing money for years and years, and obviously they want to get the books straight. They want to be on the positive side and not just throwing away money when they haven't been contending for a while. But listen, Giancarlo is one of the best players in Major League Baseball. He's more than likely going to win NL MVP. I think he could. But why would you trade? Like, what are you gonna get what are you gonna get in return that's gonna be justifiable for trading him away? Other than, getting some money relief and getting rid of his contract, you are not going to get, whether it's pitchers or it's other position players, you are not going to get players of his caliber to come in and replace him. You're not going to be able to get someone that replaces his home runs or his RBIs and his batting production. In the field, he's got a very strong arm. I wouldn't say he's one of the best outfielders in the game. I mean, I think he's good. I wouldn't say he's the greatest defensive player.
Yeah.
But offensively, you can't replace him at all. And I think these players just don't come around that often. So, yes, he does have a hefty contract that, is not easy to swallow for Derek Jeter and this Marlins team.
How big is that contract?
Still got 10 years and how much?
$295 million on it.
Whew. Who do they think they are, the Yankees or the Dodgers? But no, I keep him. He's your best chance right now of having any shot of winning a World Series. So you trade him away unless you're going to get rid of his entire contract and all that money's going to get freed up and you can just go and, spend it on other pitchers and other bats. I don't see how this is a good situation for the Marlins other than the money factor. I say keep him, build through the draft, build through your farm system, and then make certain trades, midway through the year, that type of thing. Do not trade Giancarlo Stanton. Keep him in Miami. Nick, do you care that Jerry Jones, Mr. Cowboys owner, is still fighting with the NFL and Roger Goodell?
I don't care because I'm not a Cowboys fan, so it doesn't matter to me that their owner is kind of going at it. But it's interesting because Jerry Jones, look what happened when he took his quarterback away. He really has taken this personally. So it should be interesting to look at for the rest of the time because Roger Goodell, his contract's coming up, and this all has to do with the fact that Jerry Jones doesn't want him to get a contract extension, essentially because he suspended Ezekiel Elliott, I think we both agree, unjustly. 6 games, and now that suspension's officially in, and the Cowboys are going to miss him until around Christmas. So Jerry Jones is just going full bore. He's just like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to go after Roger Goodell, and whatever happens to me, happens to me, and whatever happens to Goodell, happens to Goodell, but something's going to happen. And it's like a little Mexican standoff now between the two. So should be interesting to watch, but I don't care that much because I'm not a Cowboys fan. Jared, last question. Do you care that the Battle of the Victory Bell is this weekend? USC versus UCLA.
I do care. Big game. Big rivalry.
Big game?
Oh, yeah. USC, obviously, they locked up the Pac-12 South last week against Colorado. At 9-2, they are out of pretty much the 14 playoff contention, but still have a chance for a good bowl. Yeah. And UCLA is sitting here at 5-5. Looking pretty pathetic.
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. Listen, you have Josh Rosen and you have the caliber of athletes in this team. And
we all know who to blame.
Who are we blaming?
Jim Mora.
Okay, no, I agree. I agree with you. I'm
blaming LeAngelo Ball on the football team.
Exactly right. It's all his fault. Yeah. No, but listen, for the talent that this UCLA team has, and the fact that they are 5-5 it's nothing short of pathetic. This team should be a lot better. Their record, they should have only 2-3 losses max on their roster right now, and yet they have 5. So even though both of these teams are kind of heading in different directions, it's a rivalry game. So you throw the records out.
I agree with that.
You throw the records out. I'm pretty sure none of these teams care about the records. It's about winning that bell and having bragging rights for a year.
It's literally just about like this rivalry now too, because of the fact that it's USC's clinched anything they could get besides the Final Four spot, and UCLA. They have to try to get into a bowl still. Yeah. They still want to get a bowl. You want to have one more game of Rosen.
A bad bowl at best that they would.
But you want to have one more game for Rosen.
No, of course. And for Rosen, listen, this is his third year.
And he said he's going to play too. So.
Yeah, no, he is going to play, and I hope he does play because I'm not saying USC is going to come out here and just bow down and lay down because they've pretty much clinched everything and they can't necessarily win anything else this week. But like I said, no, this is bragging rights. This is USC UCLA. It's going to be a great game. It's on at 5 o'clock on ABC. Yeah, I don't know if College Game Day is going to be there, but this is kind of the game of the week.
I think they're in like Wisconsin.
Oh, they are? Okay, but this is the game of the week. So no, it's always nice. It's great to see rivalries played in general, whether it doesn't matter what sport it is.
Yeah.
And for real, if it's a real rivalry, it doesn't even matter what the records are. Like I said, you throw the records out the books. Both these teams and the players know what's at stake. So regardless of both these teams were 0-10, they're going to come out here and they're going to fight. And that's what I like to see about rivalries is the history and the fact that no matter what, you want those bragging rights for a year. So these are always good matchups. The last couple of years have been really good. You got you got Rosen going up against Mr. USC and Sam Darnold.
You almost forgot his name.
I did almost forget his name. I know. I've been thinking about Rosen a little too much. I'm thinking about UCLA too much. Thinking about my boys in USC. I did not forget you. Sorry, Nick is just Nick's trying to get in my head a little bit.
Little stutter. I think the Cowboys loss took a lot out of you this week.
It did. I'm still recovering from that as well. Okay, so it wasn't the greatest week, other than the fact that I was at the Rams game and had a great time there. Okay,
there you go.
But no, going to be a great game. USC more than likely will win. They are at home, so I got to give the edge to USC. But UCLA is going to come out with some type of fight, and I can see it being a 7 or 10 point game. It's not going to be any type of blowout. I don't think, at least.
Pete Carroll, I was watching that 30 for 30 on the USC team from back in 2006, and there was one thing that Pete Carroll used to say. Beat UCLA, beat Notre Dame, get to a Rose Bowl, win national championship. So beat UCLA is on the minds of the USC.
Well, they've
team,
already
no
lost
what.
to Notre Dame, so they're 0-1 in that respect. So they got a chance to go 1-1.
Didn't mean it that way. Just meant the fact that they do care about this game every year, whether UCLA's 2-10 or whether UCLA's 10-0. So that should be interesting. That's it for Do You Care? We'll be back with more college football talk. We didn't talk about new rankings that just came out. A couple interesting movements of teams. And there was some really, really good games last week with some surprising results. So we'll be back to end the podcast on a college football segment. We'll be right back.
Now let's look at the teams at the top of the rankings, and we have a new number one because Georgia fell from 1 to 7, and Alabama moves to number 1. The Crimson Tide undefeated and holding that top spot. Just behind the Crimson Tide at number 2. This is a little surprising to me, given the way the game was played. Clemson and Florida State.
That was not pretty, and the week before that against NC State, they're winning games. But interesting, considering you have Miami out there the last 2 weeks, the way they played, Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield. Interesting, Clemson gets up to 2.
Trust is earned. It isn't just given. These 3 young men will remain suspended indefinitely from our program as we work through the review process with the university's Office of Student Conduct. During that indefinite suspension, they will not travel with the team, nor will they suit up for home games. At some point, they may be permitted to join team workouts, practices, and meetings, but that timeline has yet to be determined.
Come to podcast back after that quick break. And we have some breaking news to give you guys. We told you we'd give you an update on what was happening with the UCLA players during their press conference. And they're suspended indefinitely. But Steve Alford, I'll read the quote. He said, this is from the head coach, he said they will have to earn their way back, which means they're not going to get suspended more than likely for the entire year. And also the players will not be able to travel, will not suit up for road games, or take part in practice while the school performs a review of the situation. So, maybe there's still a chance these guys get suspended for longer than we think. But for right now, they're not suspended they're not kicked off the team, let's say. So your initial thoughts on that real quick, Jared?
Yeah, no, as of right now, I think I would have to agree with how the coach handled the situation. They're suspended indefinitely. So what indefinitely means, at least in my opinion, is they are suspended until the coach and the school feels that these players have, I guess, served their time or they've learned their lesson. But I do like how they can't travel for road games. They pretty much can't practice and can't take part in the basketball activities, day-to-day activities. I think that's a big factor. I believe in the first segment. I remember in the first segment, I came out and said that I thought that they would be able to still practice and be a part of the team. I think that would help them deal with this. Mm-hmm. But now that they really can't do anything with the team. I'm sure they can be in contact, but in a sense, they're kind of on their own a little bit more. So they're going to have to lean a little bit more on, their family and their friends and each other to get through the situation, because right now they don't have their other teammates They don't really have their coaches, so they're it's kind of up to them again. And so we'll see how they handle the situation. Another opportunity for them to show that they can be adults and show that they can learn from the situation and go from it, because this could go one of two ways. They can grow up from this, they can learn from this and become better people, or they can not have that support system and they are not going to learn anything, and they can continue to go about the ways that got them in trouble in the first place. So we'll see. But I do, like I said, I do agree with the indefinite suspension. I hope that they are suspended for, at least a month or two. I hope this isn't just like a week suspension, and I mean 1 week, not week as in not week, a 1 week suspension. And then they're like, oh, okay, well we've given them enough time. Give them a month or two, half the season, bring them back when league play starts, something like that. Let them learn the lesson.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I think that they did a good job. This is probably the perfect suspension for these guys, right? Indefinitely, so you don't really know what it is. Now, if it comes out that, like we were talking about earlier, that they essentially did nothing wrong, or maybe that not all the players were implicated in it, let's say maybe one guy stole them and then kind of gave them, something like that, then maybe that one guy gets more in trouble than the others or something like that. That's all hypothetical. I don't know anything about as far as the situation. But, I think this suspension is perfect because it leaves the chance to be suspended for a very long time. Or if they end up being innocent, it leaves the chance for them to be suspended for not that long. And they said they're going to review the situation, so they're going to do their little investigation of their own. So we'll have to see. This is an ongoing story. But for now, LiAngelo Ball, Cody Riley, and Jalen Hill are not going to be playing basketball. You want to say one more thing?
Quick question. Yeah. This is for you that I kind of just thought of. For these three players, not saying that they, are going to leave for the NBA next year, that they're NBA ready or anything like that. If they do, how much does this hurt their draft stock?
It will definitely hurt their draft stock. I'll tell you, like, if let's say Cody Riley was the number one pick in the draft, he ain't going to be the number one pick in the draft anymore. It will definitely affect them because it shows your character. I mean, it's not like if they were to do this and this was the old college way where everyone kind of stayed till their senior year, they did it their freshman year, then, if you're a senior, they're not going to be asking you. But these guys go out of high school, they go to college for 1 year, and they're in the NBA the next year. So their character's not going to change in 1 year, Your character tends to change in about 3 or 4. And that's why, I've always said that I liked when the college players stayed a little longer because I thought they matured and they were better when they went into the NBA. They knew how to handle their money a little better than most people, and other stuff like that. But I do think it will definitely hurt their draft stock. Cody Riley, Jalen Hill being the NBA draft, and LiAngelo Ball most likely being the Chinese draft. I had
okay.
Did I say the joke last week about the Chinese thing? Where they said, it's going to hurt LiAngelo Ball's stake in the Chinese team or something like that. Something stupid. It's a bad joke. I had to say
another shot at the Ball family.
So that will end the UCLA segment of the day. Well, now let's talk about college football. We say we're going to talk about college football. Enough college basketball for the day. Let's talk some college football. Hey, Jared, top 25 rankings came out again this Tuesday, like they always do. Wasn't unexpected. But what was unexpected for me was the fact that Clemson's number 2. And I don't know. See, you're none. When me and my dad and my brother were watching it last night, we kind of had our own predictions. I thought it'd be Alabama, Miami, Oklahoma, and then Clemson, 4th. And that's not what happened. It's Alabama number 1, Clemson number 2, Miami number 3, and Oklahoma number 4. So I'll get my take on it first. Clemson. I forgot my paper too that had my little statistics on it about why I thought Clemson shouldn't have been in. I'll just try to remember. Clemson, that loss to Syracuse, it's the worst loss. I actually looked at the top 12 teams in the rankings right now that were in the AP poll. I think it ended with Penn State and USC. They were near the end of it. All of their losses had come to teams that were ranked right now or had been ranked at one point during the season. So Syracuse is the only one Clemson, their loss to Syracuse is the only one that's not to a team that's been ranked. So I think that has to hurt you. And for some reason, and I get that Auburn killed Georgia and that helps Clemson's stake, but Oklahoma's beaten the number 8 team, the number 10 team, and the number 11 team in the rankings. And I might be a little. I think that's as far as the AP poll rankings. I didn't look at that as far as the college football playoff. But so they've beaten 3 those teams, and they've lost to a team that was ranked pretty much the whole year, Iowa State. I have no idea how they're ahead. They're below Clemson. And Jared, can you enlighten me on that?
You know what? I wish I could, but I agree with you.
Doesn't
Clemson,
make any sense.
I think they've done enough to get in, but I do think they should be. I do think they should be number 4. I would have actually put Oklahoma at number 2.
I thought I would put them at number 1.
At this point in the season, you have to not only start looking at, okay, who are the best teams, who are the best players, and why are these teams in the positions that they are.
Yeah.
To me, Baker Mayfield, the way that he's played this year, he has to be one of, if not the best player in the country. And so the fact that Oklahoma, their offense looks almost unstoppable, their defense can give up some points. That's something they definitely have to work on. But offensively, I think this Oklahoma team can go up against anybody, including Alabama. So because they do have Baker Mayfield, who I think is the best quarterback in college football, I would not have been surprised if Oklahoma was number 1, but I did have Oklahoma at number 2. I think Alabama, was going to be bumped back up to number 1, which they were, and then I would have put Oklahoma number 2, Miami number 3, deservingly after that whooping that they put on Notre Dame. Now, was that just on that Miami topic for a second? Was that surprising that they whooped on Notre Dame like that?
It was surprising because I didn't do enough research on Miami. Like I didn't do when we did the pick'em section last week as far as the ranked games go. I did not do enough research to look at how good Miami's defense was, and their defense is championship worthy. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's top 3 defense. That's why they're top 3 in the rankings too. But that's really their thing. Their offense is still, and they still have played 1 less game than every other college football team this season because one of them got canceled. But Miami is as legit as you get, and they're better than Clemson in the ACC. Now they will play each other. That's for sure. It's been now determined that Clemson will play Miami in the ACC championship game in Charlotte. So we will really see who the better team is, and maybe that's an elimination game for one of these teams as well. But I think Miami's better than Clemson as well, and that's why I had them ahead too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Another kind of big game in a sense was that Georgia-Auburn.
Wow.
What happened to Georgia?
I don't know, Jared. You're the one who's so high on Georgia the whole year. I want you to explain it. I'm not going to explain it. You're the one who said that. Remember, I said Alabama. I'm with the Alabama train.
Yeah,
you said you were Georgia train. So what happened?
Thought you would have forgot about that one.
No, I didn't.
No.
I actually am surprised they didn't bring it up already in the segment.
Yeah, no. I'm asking you because I have no idea what the hell happened to Georgia. Where did their defense go? That defense that I thought was ranked number 1 in the country, so highly touted. What happened?
Yeah, Auburn's good. Auburn is legit. Okay.
They have 2 losses. They lost to LSU.
I know. It's a fluke. It's a fluke.
Oh.
Who else did they lose? They lost to someone good earlier in the season.
Come on.
Who else did they lose to earlier in the season? Who was it?
Clemson.
Okay. What was the score? 14-6? There you go. Okay. Auburn's defense surprised me actually more than their offense surprised me against Georgia.
I agree with that.
Their front 4 they played like a national championship team, and I wouldn't have been surprised, to be honest, if they would have been put in the top 4, ahead of Clemson in my opinion. But you can't do that because they lost. But here's the problem. I think Auburn's better than Clemson now, even though Clemson beat them, and that's where this whole dynamic of are we really putting in the best teams? Or are we putting in the teams that are most deserving? I said this last year with USC. So it's interesting. What was your thoughts on Auburn?
Listen, my thing was, and I think you kind of hit on it, Auburn's offense, I think, can play with almost anyone. Their defense is what I was kind of skeptical of. But after they played Georgia and they held Georgia to the minimal points that they did, this Auburn team right now looks like, if anyone, like when Miami and Clemson play, whoever loses that game more than likely gets bumped out. Auburn has a really, really good chance.
They gotta beat Alabama though, still too.
True, they do. But if they do win that game, then they've got a chance to bump into and have potentially 2 SEC teams in the top 4. But right now Auburn in a sense kind of controls their own destiny, because I think Auburn, if they do beat Alabama, or even if it's a very, very close game, I think you have to bump them ahead of Wisconsin, because Wisconsin right now is ranked number 5. They're undefeated, blah, blah, blah.
Wisconsin has two tough games in the season.
They do. Wisconsin.
I know they play Michigan this week.
They do. Michigan, and then they
Well, what I mean by the two, because they're going to play in the Big 12.
Right, and then they end at Minnesota, who Minnesota's not a slouch.
Rivalry game.
Yeah, very good rivalry game. They did pretty much hand it to Iowa. I thought Iowa was going to give them a little bit more of a game than they did.
Iowa killed Ohio State, too.
True. But no, this Michigan game is going to be tough for them, and at Minnesota as well. So those are two tougher games that they deserve to have, seeing as the rest of their schedule towards the beginning was pretty much a cakewalk.
What's your opinion on Georgia's chances at the Final Four still?
They do only have one loss, even though it was a whooping. But listen, the other two teams that they play the rest of the year this week, they play Kentucky. That's
a win.
Nothing. That's a win. And at Georgia Tech. So
Georgia Tech's not that bad.
They're
a lot of close games.
Decent team. See, the problem right now
and then the SEC championship game.
Problem right now is I don't know if Georgia controls their own destiny. And that's the spot that I don't think you want to be in.
So you don't think if they win the SEC championship game, they're in? If they beat Alabama or Auburn, so that would be they would either redeem against Auburn or they beat Alabama.
So yeah, but that means that Auburn would have to beat Alabama, and then Georgia would play Alabama.
Well, no, Georgia's in for sure, no matter what.
Okay.
I'm saying Georgia's in the SEC championship game. Alabama or Auburn, those are the two teams they're going to get.
Oh, who they
Don't
play. Okay.
you think that because if they play Alabama, that's enough to earn them in at having a 12-1 record, and having redeemed themselves against Auburn with a 12-1 record? I still think they have a very good chance of getting in.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you
right.
come up with a good point. I guess I didn't necessarily think of it that way.
One of the teams they beat, Notre Dame, disappointed too. So I'm actually surprised they kind of stayed in that realm of the 7. I thought they might go down a little further.
They did.
Because of Notre Dame.
For how bad of a loss it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's not like they lost by 3 or 7.
Yeah.
I mean, they got
Same with Notre Dame. Why is Notre Dame at 8?
Yeah, there was no. That was just like they didn't even come out of it. They forgot they had a game. You know, that was bad, man. That was bad. And especially towards
which game are you talking about?
Georgia.
Okay.
Especially towards the end.
Both of them were that way.
Yeah, no. Especially towards the end of the year, it's like if you want to have a loss, you want to have a loss towards the beginning of the year because then you kind of forget about it. Right? Yeah. And then you have a chance to make it up. Right now, the only chance you had to make it up is the SEC championship game. Yes, for Oklahoma, like right now, they're kicking on all cylinders right now, and everyone forgot about it. I almost forgot about their loss. Right? The way that they're playing, they could have been undefeated. So it's just the later in the season you get, and you have a loss, I think it's just tougher and tougher to make that up.
Yeah.
Unless you can play in the conference championship
Notre
game.
Dame doesn't have a chance to get in. Unless they need help because they don't have conference championship.
And because they're independent, which is their own fault.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're and they have 2 losses, they are not going to get.
Are you mad about Notre Dame not having a chance?
Hell no.
No, absolutely not.
I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm not going to get as heated as Nick over here. No. But no, Notre Dame, because they're independent and because they have 2 losses, they now have no chance to get in my opinion. This really is, I guess you can put the top 7 teams in, right? Auburn, Clemson.
I want to ask you about this, though.
Okay.
Ohio State. They killed Michigan State this week.
They did.
What was the score, like 45-something? 45-10? Something like that? Maybe even worse?
45-3
or 48-3. Even worse, I thought.
Yeah.
So, do they still have a chance? 2-loss team? Even though they got killed by Iowa and they lost to Oklahoma, let's say they get into the big... Let's say they beat Michigan. Wait, who do they play tomorrow? Oh, they play Illinois.
Illinois, and then the rivalry week.
Then they play Michigan, who's probably going to be ranked coming to that game. And then they'll play Wisconsin. Is that enough to get them in with 2 losses?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
No, I think even some of Ohio State's wins earlier this year, I don't know if their schedule.
Who have they beaten? That's a good question.
Yeah, like they
Penn State,
they beat Maryland, Rutgers, UNLV, Army. You know, I think
realistically they've only beaten
their biggest wins are against Penn State and Michigan State.
And Michigan State's a 3-loss team.
Yeah, so, and then obviously like you said, they lost to Oklahoma and Iowa. So I don't think. It would be very tough.
It would be.
These other top teams would have to really tank, and like they're one of the other teams that would need help.
Well, but looking at it right now, it's probably going to be here's what the Final Four is probably going to look like. It's going to be Alabama, Auburn, or Georgia. One of those teams is getting in. Clemson or Miami is getting in from the ACC.
Yeah. Oklahoma, I think, is...
Well, that's the one team. If they lose the Big 12 championship game, I don't think that gets them in. That's the thing. Let's say they lose the TCU or Oklahoma State again because they're going to play them again. I think that knocks them out. So that's maybe one slot where the Big Ten could get in. But I don't think USC is going to do enough to get in.
No,
so they're going to need a lot of help.
They didn't move. They stayed at 11 this week.
But then there might be two SEC teams. Are you going to knock Alabama out for being 12-1? You know, that's the thing. So
let's just say this: I would not want to be on that committee.
No,
that is a lot of hard questions to answer.
Yeah, exactly. But rankings are interesting. So what games are coming up this week? As far you mentioned during a break that there wasn't a lot of big games this week.
Yeah,
USC, UCLA, we're going to be focused on, obviously.
Is the probably one of the bigger games. But, listen, Alabama's playing Mercer.
They're playing Mercer. Dude,
Mercer even has a football team.
Mercer has had to play Auburn and Alabama this year.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, you got Miami and Virginia. That's going to be a good game because I don't think Virginia's a slouch. I think Virginia has a really good defense. Auburn's playing Louisiana Monroe. Get out of here, man! Yeah. This is not the first or second game of the year where you're playing these cupcakes. I don't like these matchups at all. Clemson's playing Citadel.
The Citadel. Is that
really?
Mall? Is that mall off the 5?
Really?
It's that mall off the 5.
That's Oklahoma's playing Kansas. Kansas is a basketball school.
That's a Big 12 game. Though.
Yeah.
You can't. They have to play every team in the conference.
Okay.
So.
All right. Notre Dame's playing Navy.
Yeah, who cares about Notre Dame?
Ohio State's playing Illinois. There's not a whole lot.
I saw the one big game was Michigan and Wisconsin.
Yeah,
that's a solid game.
Really, other than that, I literally just went down the schedule.
That's terrible. Actually, USC, UCLA only because we're biased LA fans and we want to see that one, and Wisconsin, Michigan.
That's about it.
I'm going out Saturday, that's for sure. I ain't sitting back and watching college football on Saturday.
Nick is not going to be in front of the TV on Saturday night.
No, hit me up. No. Tell me a bar to go to. I'll go to it.
Hit him up. Hit him up, people.
But so I guess let's pick those two. Those are the only two games. So. We got UCLA and USC. Jared, who you got?
USC. USC has more talent than UCLA does. Big rivalry game. I expect it to be close. USC will pull away late. They do have the.
You want to say UCLA because you keep saying the name.
I don't want to say. I keep looking at their logo, and that's why I need to stop looking at them. USC all the way.
Okay. No, I'll say USC too. It's hard to pick against USC, especially since they've been playing a lot better. But like I said, with Florida State and Clemson, which ended up being closer to the game than most people thought, you never know. And I could see UCLA beating them because Rosen's been playing well, or he played really well coming off injury last week, and has played well pretty much the entire season when he's not injured. So anytime you got Josh Rosen as your quarterback, you got a chance to win. So I wouldn't be surprised if UCLA wins, but I'm picking USC. Let's go Michigan and Wisconsin. See, this is tough. It's in Wisconsin, so I'm going to give the slight edge to Wisconsin there. But Michigan, they don't got to fight for a lot, for their season, so you never know. You know what? I'll go with the upset. I'll go Michigan beats Wisconsin and ruins Wisconsin's and the Big Ten's championship hopes this year.
Nick. This is not difficult at all.
Okay.
For as much as we bag on Wisconsin for the crappy schedule that they've had this year, they're going to beat Michigan. Michigan, I'm sorry, their defense is the only thing they can hang their hat on this year because offensively they played like crap. They're lucky, in my opinion, to be number 24. Even though they have an 8-2 record, they've lost 2 Big Ten games, which has really put them behind the 8 ball. But no, I'm sorry, Michigan, in my opinion, has no chance to beat Wisconsin.
No chance.
No, I'm sorry, none. Zip.
Okay.
0.
That's gonna be interesting. So hopefully Michigan wins. I'm gonna talk a lot of crap next week.
That's all we hope for. That's just the big upsets.
Exactly. No, totally. Okay, so that's done with the college football segment. Jared, you got a final thought on the day?
Final thoughts.
You don't got one. I can do mine first.
Okay, go ahead.
What was I was gonna say something. I totally. Oh yeah. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Cardinals games. We're not gonna talk. They're playing Texans this week, so they should win. They could be 5-5. But I want to talk about the ridiculousness of that pass Russell Wilson threw against the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football last week, where he just threw it up. I'm gonna blame Tyrann Mathieu for jumping up and biting on the fake pass. But honestly, man, we had the Seahawks that close. We were that close to beat the Seahawks, and we could have been 6-4. But we're gonna beat the Texans this week. Tom Savage sucks. You saw that last week you were there at the Rams. So just want to give a little shout out to the Cardinals. They're gonna be 5-5 this week. They're not going to lose. And Drew Stanton's playing better than I thought at quarterback. So that's my final thought.
My final thought, this game I will be watching tonight at home. The Lakers play the 76ers. It's not necessarily about that. It's about Lonzo Ball going up against Ben Simmons.
Ooh,
Lonzo Ball,
Ben Simmons, good.
yeah, obviously top pick this year, number 2 pick this year. And Ben Simmons, the number 1 overall draft pick last year by the 76ers, missed all of last year with a foot injury. He's healthy this year, and right now he looks like the rookie of the year. So this is going to be, I think, a really, really good test for the Lakers and for Lonzo Ball, because the Sixers, they look pretty decent. The Sixers have for how many first-round draft picks this team has had in the last decade, it seems like they're finally coming together, that whole trust the process thing that this team's been talking about for a while. It seems like they're finally putting things together, and the fact that they're in the East, a little bit easier for them to potentially make the playoffs as a 7th or 8th seed. But good game tonight between 2 rookies going head-to-head. I'll definitely be watching that game.
For sure, and you hear the music right there. That is the end of the podcast. We did the podcast. We had a lot of news. We had breaking news today. A lot of UCLA stuff. You know what's going to happen next week, but let's give a quick prediction. Cowboys and Eagles. What you got?
Why do you put me on the spot like this? I mean, if I was a betting man, like if I was putting money down, I would have to go with the Eagles, because I just don't think my Cowboys, they have too many stars. They have too many stars that are out right now. But as a Cowboys fan, I can never say the Eagles. Of course I'm going to bet the Cowboys. What's wrong with